Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to have you join us today for Sharsheret in the Kitchen's Finding Umami with Jamie Wei from Chopsticks Meet Fork. I'm Jessica Jablon. I'm the California Program Coordinator at Sharsheret. For those of you who don't know about Sharsheret, we help women and families facing breast and ovarian cancer, as well as those who are at elevated genetic risk, through free, confidential, and personalized support and resources. We also provide health education throughout the country. One of our goals is to make sure that we are offering healthy living and cancer prevention information to you during this time and giving you what support you need. In addition to our virtual services that can be found on our website or by emailing us, you can also access prior webinars on a range of cancer-related topics, as well as access our calendar of upcoming virtual programs through our website. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. Today's webinar is being recorded, and for the first time, we're live streaming it on our Facebook account. So hi to our friends watching on Facebook. Participants' faces and names will not be in the recording or be shown as long as you remain muted. It will be posted on Sharsheret's website along with a transcript in the next week. Now, for those of you on Zoom, if you would like to remain private, you can turn off your video and rename yourself, or you can call into the webinar. Instructions are going in the chat box now for both of those options. And you may have noticed that all participants were muted upon entry. Please keep yourself on mute throughout the call. If you have any questions for Jamie, put them in the chat box to submit a private question. You can click on Sharsheret and send it to me directly, and I'll ask them throughout the program. And we will send out a follow-up email with tips and recommendations from today's webinar with the recording in the next week or so. We're very excited to continue our Sharsheret in the Kitchen series, an initiative in partnership with Cedars-Sinai here in Los Angeles to empower those of us at risk for breast and ovarian cancer to make healthier diet choices. We've had wonderful guests for this healthier cooking series, and we invite you to check out our prior Sharsheret in the Kitchen webinars on our website at the link in the chat. Now, you should have received the recipes for today's program in advance, but my colleague is going to put the link in the chat box so you can download them and print it or see it on your screen. We want to thank today's webinar partners at the Women to Women program at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York for their partnership. And we also want to thank our incredible sponsors, Cedars-Sinai, the Cooperative Agreement DP19-1906 from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Daiichi Sankyo, GSK, and Merck. It is because of their generous support that we have been able to continue to provide our series of webinars throughout the pandemic. Now, I want to share with you one of our favorite programs here at Sharsheret, our Busy Boxes. Busy Boxes are sent for free in the mail to families with young children to help you learn how to guide your children through your cancer or prophylactic surgery. Each Busy Box includes resource materials to educate parents about the impact of breast and ovarian cancer or prophylactic surgery on children. The Busy Box also features a starter kit of games and activities to occupy your children while you're at the doctor or resting after surgery or treatment. And our clinical and fulfillment teams work hard to personalize each family's Busy Box. If you would like to order a Busy Box, the information is being put into the chat now. And we also partner with organizations and individuals to do Busy Box toy drives, where you can collect the toys and have them shipped to our New Jersey offices, or we can give you a link to an Amazon wish list where the toys are sent directly to our offices. If you are interested in finding out more about how to hold a Busy Box toy drive or donate toys to our Busy Box program, please email us at info@sharsheret.org. If you're interested in finding out more about Sharsheret's free, confidential, and personalized, if you're interested in finding out more about Sharsheret's free, confidential, and personalized services, please email us at clinicalstaff@sharsheret.org or visit us at sharsheret.org. Now, before we meet Jamie, I want to introduce one of our amazing California Advisory Committee members and volunteer, Sharon, who will be sharing her story with us.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Jessica. So my story is hopefully will be helpful to many others. So 2 days before my 37th birthday, I won't tell you yet how old I am, but 2 days before my 37th birthday, I felt a lump under my left arm. And I noticed it before, but it's just one of those things I sort of ignored. But finally, it just kind of hit me where I was like, wait a minute, this is not okay. And it was like on a Friday. And so, of course, all the doctor's offices are closed. And it was my daughter's 5th birthday at the time. I have 2 children, like thinking about it all weekend. So it was not really a fun weekend. But on Monday, I made an appointment, went to the OB, who took a biopsy. And of course, the hardest thing is waiting for those results. And 2 days later, the longest 2 days of my life, I was at work. I was a kindergarten teacher at the time. And the word I got was they were atypical cells. So of course you hear that and you're like, oh my God. So I ended up going to an oncologist. And one of the things that I remember feeling is like, well, I don't want to bother anyone. I'll wait 2 weeks to go. And my husband and some family members who just had connections and were more assertive than I got me an appointment the next day. And I have to say, I was very thankful for that help. So I took a genetic test as well, and I was positive for BRCA1. And I also had a triple negative, which, if some of you know, it's estrogen, progesterone, and HER2 protein. So I was negative for all 3 of those. But I was told we had to be very, very aggressive, because what happened was that I apparently have a 3-centimeter tumor, and it was apparently stage 3B, which was because of the size, and that they had taken 36 lymph nodes out and 18 were positive. So it went to my lymph nodes. So that's why it wasn't just contained. So I had a bilateral mastectomy and 7 months of 2 different cocktails of chemotherapy followed by radiation. And so it was a long road. But one of the things that was very, very helpful after the mastectomy was physical therapy. And I really, really want to stress that. That was the such an important aspect of my getting better and having full movement of my arms and just physically feeling good. The other thing that I got was a dog. It was one of those things that I've always wanted. And my husband was like, no, I don't want a dog. But now that I had cancer, he was like, get whatever you want. So I got a dog, and that actually really helped me walk every day and be able to like take care of something else besides myself. And it also helped my children. My children really, really depended on that dog, and really, it was such a comfort to them. So at that time, which was actually 20 years ago. So if you do the math, I was 37 then, you could do the math of how old I am now. So at that time, Sharsheret, I went to I was at the beginning of Sharsheret, actually. Rachel Shoretz, who was the founder of Sharsheret, she was at a friend's house, and my friend had told me about it. I went with 2 other friends that I met through having breast cancer, and different friends who just introduced us. And I met more people just going there, and you really feel like you're not alone. And one of the things that Sharsheret really helped me with was being able to help someone else was really a wonderful way to pay it forward, because I had many people supporting me. And it was very healing for me to be able to pay it forward and to be able to help other people through their chain program, which was me being able to talk to someone else who's going through the same experience. So now to more recently, I now had it's called an autologous trans flap. I had it about a few months ago, and I was very happy I have it now. I wasn't happy at the time because it's a very big surgery, but what that is when I had implants initially, and it's been 20 years. So I then took the fat that I had in my stomach and then put that where my breasts are. So now I don't have to have any other surgery ever again, because I'm using my own my own body. So I'm very, very glad I did that. And I sort of feel in a way whole again, because it's just me. It's not some foreign body living in me anymore. So for me, that was a very good decision that I had. I just want to say that that's really my story. And it's been 20 years and I'm doing well. And I hope this is helpful for everybody out there. So thank you.
Thank you, Sharon, for sharing your story and for being such a resource for our Sharsheret callers and our Sharsheret family. We're very lucky to have you and appreciate that you are here today with us. So thank you for sharing. Now I am excited to introduce Jamie Wei, also known as Chopsticks Meat Fork on social media. The kitchen is Jamie's comfort place. Creating food is her way of meditating. Cooking and baking keeps her grounded and provides her with a sense of peace. Jamie was born and raised in Taiwan. So East Asian flavors are what she grew up eating and making, and she married an American Jew. And as she expanded beyond Taiwanese cuisine and cooking methods, she started working through a lot of cookbooks, mostly Middle Eastern or Jewish. And Jamie was fascinated by the foreign flavors, spices, and cooking techniques. And she loves coming up with foods that combine both her husband's and her culture's dishes that can bring back memories, but also have a touch of novelty that create a wow at first bite. This is what motivates and inspires her to create all of her recipes. And if you follow her on Instagram, you know just how beautiful and delicious her recipes look. Please stay tuned to the end of our webinar and fill out our survey for a chance to win one of 2 bamboo steamers that we're going to be giving out. Welcome to Sharsheret in the Kitchen, Jamie. We are so glad that you're here today, and I'll turn it over to you.
Well, hi, Jessica. Hi, everyone. I'm very honored and excited to be here. I am going to show you guys 3 recipes that I created specifically for this event. All of them are very delicious, full of umami, full of flavor, and it's very easy to make. And yeah, so I want to talk about like why I feel very honored to be here, because I lost my mom to breast cancer, and I've been trying to find a lot of way to help in a way, although it's not helping my mom directly, but it's kind of like paying a tribute. So I feel very honored that I am able to be here. Okay, let's start. The first, I think a lot of you already have recipes. The first recipe I'm going to make today is my Taro Kanji, because that will take the longest. So let's just start from that one. And because of the time, so I already pre-chopped and soaked the mushroom and measure everything already. We're just going to start right away. First, take a pot that's going to hold at least like 5 quarts of water, liquid, because we have the broth and all the other ingredients. Heat a pot with the oil. And then once the pot is hot enough, I pre-chopped the taro. Basically, you can use taro. I personally really like the flavor of taro. You can find them in almost all the Asian supermarket, and sometimes you can find them at Whole Foods and some organic supermarket or farmers market. But if you don't like them or you cannot find them, sweet potato works too. So you chop them into, not too small because they're going to melt. I chop them into 1-inch cubes and then put them into the pot. You need to stir them like pretty frequently because they have a lot of starch. You don't want them to stick to the bottom. And what we are looking for is we are going to get some color on all the sides. So I don't know if you can hear it. I'm going to like have my microphone close to that. You can hear the sizzling. But stir them frequently. So once they're all color on all sides and they start seeing some like crispy edges, that's when you can take them, remove from the pot. So I'm going to save the container. You also don't want to stir them like constantly because you want the heat to actually do the work. Because if you stir them constantly, it's actually hard to actually have the crispy edge. So it's kind of stir from time to time. Yes. So
It's cool that we can hear the sizzling.
that's great. I really like that. When I look at cooking video on Instagram or Facebook, I love hearing all these like chopping sounds or like sizzling sound. I find that very therapeutic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so if you are following along, this we're just like stirring this to get some color on the taro. And I will say I will not recommend to use potato. If you don't want to use taro, use potato because they have very distinct flavor than potato. So yeah, that's why I will recommend using these two root vegetables. And how, if you don't know how to chop them, when you get them, let me show you how taro look like. They look like this. It's like very furry. You just use a fruit peeler, just peel them and then chop them. That's it. And they will turn darker if you don't soak them in the water or if you don't use them immediately. So what I did earlier, because I pre-chopped them, I soaked them in the water while I was waiting. So they're not going to like get dark.
Do you use like cold water or warm water? Does it matter the temperature of the water that you're soaking it in?
I use cold water. Cold. So now you can see actually it starts changing color. Let me take one up. The color start getting darker. What we're looking for is just start having some crispy edges. And once you start having that, just remove them from the pot. It's okay if you have some like skin or like some part of the taro stick in the bottom. It's going to come off later when you are cooking the broth. Then using the same pot, and then you don't have to add more oil because you still have some oil left from the taro, from when you are stir frying the taro. In this same pot, without washing it, just add in the thinly sliced shallot. This process only takes probably 1 to 2 minutes, depending on how hot your pot is. What you're looking for here is once the shallots start turning translucent, or if your shallots start having some crispy edges, then you're ready for the next step. So this part, you actually have to stir constantly. You don't want them to burn. Okay. And then once it's ready, add in your chopped celery and ginger. You can add more ginger if you want. It's really to taste. I usually use 1 to 2 inch long ginger and then finely chop them. But if you like very gingery stuff, you can add more. So here, you just stir fry until you start smelling the aroma from the ginger. Probably 1 minute top. And add in the mushroom. So this is a dry shiitake mushroom. You soak them in broth or water for at least 1 hour to make them softer, and then thinly slice them. So add them in, stir to combine everything. And then I use white rice. If you like brown rice or other grain, you can use that too, but you will need to cook the kanji longer because you don't want them to be too hard. So this is white rice. I rinsed it in advance. So adding the white rice. And then this is my kombu broth. Adding the broth. Kombu is Japanese for kelp. It's a kind of seaweed. And I use that to create a umami. You can use vegetable broth or chicken broth. I'm making this vegetarian. That's why I'm not using chicken broth. Otherwise, you can definitely use chicken broth. Oh, and then adding the half tablespoon of salt. So basically what I'm looking for in all three of my recipe here is I want to show you guys how to use natural ingredient to create umami, create flavors without adding too much salt, too much oil. I just want to look for some like healthy recipe, but still it's not like bland, it's not boring. It's still very delicious. So I'm using kombu, which is, you just cook the kelp. In my recipe, I show you how to do it. Like you cook the kombu for like 10 minutes, that's it. And then you have the very umami heavy broth ready to be used, and it's vegetarian. It's vegan, actually. So we adding the salt and the rice and the broth. Let's just bring it to a boil.
Jamie, somebody asked, what does taro taste like? Does it?
Taro tastes like, it's like sweet potato, but how do I describe it? So taro is something that we use a lot in East Asian cuisine, both savory and sweet. They are great for savory dish, also great for dessert. And they have a very soft flavor. I don't actually know how to describe it. It's a form, for us, it's a source for carbs. And because they're very easy to grow, it's just kind of like sweet potato. That's why we eat it a lot, and it's cheap. So it's kind of like sweet potato, but a little bit different. Also, the color is different. Taro is light purple, and yeah. Does that answer your question? Sorry, I don't know how to like describe the flavor. Taro, try it out.
It gives us all the motivation to go out and buy some and try it ourselves.
Yes. And also you can find like taro dessert in like Asian bakeries, or like all the boba tea place, they definitely have taro drinks. Although I would say those are very sweet and very artificial. If you use like natural taro to make dessert, it's not as sweet, and I prefer it make it my own, just because I like the natural flavor more.
Someone says that you can make taro chips, like potato chips.
Yes. Oh, actually, if you go to Trader Joe's or in like Walgreens, they sell taro chips too. Whole Foods too, they have taro chips. Okay, I can hear it start to like bubble. And then this is when so in my recipe, I originally forgot to add that you need to return the taro back to the pot. This is where you return the taro back to the pot. And then I think Jessica is going to send out a final version later after the webinar. You will have the final version, which will have this step. I'm so sorry, I forgot that. Just after you bring this pot of broth to, once it starts simmering, add the taro back. You don't want to add it back in too early, because taro, they will melt into the broth. And then if you want them to melt, you can add them in early, but I personally prefer to still have some taro left when I am eating the kanji later. So I usually add them last. So now just bring it back to a boil. And once they start boiling, we can move on to the next recipe. Do we have more questions? I can answer some now.
No, right now we look good. If you have questions, please put them in the chat and we will ask them.
And what else? I think someone sent question yesterday in advance asking about
there were a couple of questions that came in. One was about the different flavors. What flavors, if they want to do some Asian cooking at home, what
Uh,
kinds of ingredients do you recommend?
oh, yes. So what I always have is I always have sesame oil or toasted sesame oil. I have rice vinegar. And then I also always have soy sauce. There are actually a lot of different kind of soy sauce out there, and on Eater, they have an amazing soy sauce article telling you how to use different kind of soy sauce. So pause for a second. Now this is boiling. What we're going to do is we're going to move it to the side and then maintain a soft simmer. I'm going to cover it. Total, we're going to cook for 25 minutes, but we're going to stir every 8 to 10 minutes. So the bottom is not going to burn and the ingredients are not going to stick to the bottom. And because I'm doing different dishes at the same time, I would just use the timer to remind myself, so I'm not going to forget. So this is like a 8-minute timer. Yeah, so soy sauce. I think a lot of people just by default buy Japanese soy sauce, but actually Japanese soy sauce is totally different than how they make it and how they taste, and the consistency are very different than Chinese soy sauce. And Chinese soy sauce also have different, like they have like light, they have dark, they have steamed fish soy sauce. There are a lot of different soy sauce. What I always keep in my cabinet is the light soy sauce, and then I use Taiwanese one because I grew up using this. Yeah, so soy sauce, sesame oil, rice vinegar, and I also have rice liquor. So this is like a cooking liquor made of rice. I use it a lot. These are my main flavor, but that's like for Chinese cooking. But if you do like Southeast cuisine, then like fish sauce is also something that I use a lot. And besides that, we use a lot of chili, a lot of ginger, a lot of garlic. That's basically the basic profile for taste. Spices. Oh, I just saw that. Spices. So spices, we use a lot of white pepper. I'm going to use white pepper for the kanji later. And we use chili crisp. We use chili, and yeah, mostly are the dressing more than, I know like in Middle Eastern cuisine, there are a lot of different spices, which I'm very fascinated of. But in Chinese cuisine, we use like herbs. We use like Chinese cinnamon and a lot of different Chinese herbs when we are braised meat and stuff. But for like stir fry and stuff, we don't usually use a lot of spices, because when we use spice, it's for like slow cooking. So now we're going to move on to the next dish. The next dish, I'm going to make the sesame spinach tofu salad. First, I'm going to bring a pot of water to boil. And then we're going to stir fry some spinach. And I have heard a lot of complaints from people when they say, oh, they don't like stir fry spinach because it's so soggy and watery. And the reason of that being soggy and watery is because those spinach are overcooked. When the leaves are burned, when they got burned by the heat, they tend to release water. And that means you're actually overcooking them. And that's why they become soggy and watery and look very gross. So what we are going to do today, I'm going to show you how I usually cook my spinach. You heat this frying pan, add the oil. I always use sunflower oil. You can use any oil that's good for high heat and stir fry. I never use olive oil because olive oil get burned. They are not meant for high heat cooking. So if you go to say Whole Foods or you Google online, they will always show you what kind of oil is for what kind of temperature, what kind of cooking. So I always go for sunflower oil. Some people use grapeseed oil, but that's like so expensive. So I use sunflower oil. Yeah, so you heat it. Once it's hot, make sure it's hot. Then we can put the spinach in. Once you put the spinach in, turn the heat off after 5 to 10 seconds. And then you are using the remaining heat from the pot to cook the rest of the leaves. They will still be cooked, but they will not be watery. We'll see.
Do you ever use avocado oil?
I don't use avocado oil. I know it's very trendy right now, but I've never used them. Yeah. For my stir fry a lot, I always use sunflower oil, and then for salad and stuff, I use olive oil, and I also use sesame oil a lot for flavor. Okay, so now the pot is hot enough. Then I already wash and chop the spinach to a desired length. You can just chop them into like however long you want. I just want to chop them because I know for some people, if you are going through a special diet, fiber is really not your friend. So I try to not have fiber that's like the length is too long and just chop them. So you add them in. Did you hear that? I love that sound.
That was a great sound.
Yeah, so just turn the heat off. And then you use the remaining heat to cook the spinach. You don't have to use chopsticks to cook the spinach. Just use spatula or thong.
So Jamie, I see a lot of questions about the tofu in the chat. There are people who don't like tofu, although I love one comment who says, I used to think I didn't like it until I learned the right way to prepare it. But there's a few people asking for a tofu substitute. Do you have anything in mind that you might use instead for this?
So I know that I've heard a lot of people that didn't grow up eating tofu, not liking tofu. I think tofu is one of the very underrated ingredient, just because I agree the comment saying that, because we don't really know how to properly prepare it. There are so many different ways to prepare it. There are like so many different kind of tofu. I'm using silken or soft tofu here. There are firm tofu, there are extra firm tofu, there are frozen tofu. They're all different texture. And if you want to use a substitute, let me think. You can always use, you can use potato. Really, it's like this salad recipe is very versatile. You can pair it however you want. Like if you don't like spinach, use another kind of greens. Or if you don't like tofu, use another kind of starch or like ingredient that you want to pair with your greens. And then the dressing actually is like very perfect for a lot of different food. So go wild. Or I know a lot of people really love potato. Potato will go very well with this. Or if you like make some cold noodles and then you put it in the center and then you mix with the sesame dressing that we're going to make soon, it's going to taste so good. Sesame noodle is one of my favorite for summer. And to go with this vegetable and the dressing, it's just going to be perfect. So if you don't like tofu, it's fine. You can use whatever you want. Does that answer your question?
Someone asked if you could maybe use beans instead.
I probably will not use beans, only because beans has a very distinct flavor on its own, which is the flavor is very pretty. And I will not say it will go very well with the sesame dressing. Try to have some ingredient that doesn't have like very distinct flavor.
Great. And I guess if you wanted to try the beans, then let us know how it tastes. We can.
Yes.
We're always curious to hear if you try the recipes and modify them at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
And going back to the
Yeah.
kanji, there were a couple of questions about substitutions for mushrooms and whether or not you can use shiitake mushrooms, fresh shiitake mushrooms.
so in East Asian cuisine, like in Korean, Japanese, Chinese dishes, we use a lot of dry shiitake mushroom because the umami is so condensed. The flavor and the aroma is very different than the fresh ones. So, and you can find them very cheap in Chinatown, in Korean supermarket, in Japanese supermarket. Well, I'll say Korean Japanese supermarket will be like pricier, but in Chinatown, you can find a lot of them that are not, it's pretty cheap. And then the reason why I use mushroom, and this is going to answer one of the questions that I got in advance, that mushroom is one of the umami flavor source we use in Asian cuisine. It's like all natural. It's they pack with a lot of the very amazing flavor. So if you don't want to use mushroom, I mean, you can always use fresh one, that's for sure, but the flavor will be less intense. So yeah. Okay, so the spinach is ready, and then I'm just like transfer them into a serving platter. And then what we're going to do is to make a well here, because later we're going to put the tofu in the center. And the reason why I chose tofu here is because tofu is a great source for protein. And I know for protein is very important for a lot of different diets. Depending on your treatment, you might lose a lot of protein, and then this is a great source for you to absorb it. And if you're looking for vegetarian or vegan, tofu is just a great source. And I want to also mention why I am stir frying and cooking the tofu here, because back in the day when my mom was getting all her cancer treatment, she didn't eat raw food for a lot of different reasons. And we usually blanch or steam her ingredient, but I also know that here a lot of people think that blanching or steaming vegetables, for example, you will lose a lot of nutrition along the way. That's why I stir fry the spinach instead of blanching it. But you can always blanch your vegetable if that's not one of your concern, if that's easier for you. And that's also why I'm not serving like raw salad, because I try to prepare everything that's cooked for you guys. Yes. Now, like I said earlier, tofu, there are like so many different kind of tofu. You can use whatever kind of tofu you want, or not tofu if you want to use other ingredients, beans, potatoes, noodles, whatever you want. And we just cook them. I'll cook them for like 2 to 3 minutes. And I'm going to remove them and then cut them into small cubes and then place on the plate. Oh, yeah, I just saw that. Just want to say tofu is awesome. I agree. There are just so many different ways. You can like braise the tofu, you can pan fry the tofu, you can deep fry the tofu. If you don't like frying, mapo tofu is amazing. You can make it vegan, you can make it with meat. It goes so well with rice. I love rice. You can eat it with rice, with noodle, with a lot of different things. So there's just so many different tofu recipe out there. And if you don't like that soft texture, extra firm tofu is totally different than soft tofu or silken tofu. Or in like Asian supermarket, you can find like fish tofu. You can find frozen tofu has very interesting texture that's good with soup. So yeah, there's so many different tofu recipe out there. It's just very, very versatile and delicious. So here, now this is like in the pot for 2 minutes now. I'm going to remove it and then place it on my cutting board here. Just be careful.
So Jamie, there's a couple of questions about pressing, whether or not the tofu needs to be pressed.
Oh, so pressing the tofu is to release the water inside. That's why you're pressing the tofu. But so you can press it. Once you press it, when you buy the tofu block, it's actually soaked in the water. And then when you take them out, if you place them in a bowl, over time, you'll see they start releasing water. But to save you time, you can just like have like paper towel on top and then have a bowl or a plate on top. And then that will squeeze a lot of the water out. And it's not necessary, but you can do it. Especially if you say a lot of people, when they are like pan fry the tofu, you are making like tofu stick. Getting rid of a lot of the moist is very helpful. So it's a very useful technique, but it's not, you don't have to do it. Yes. So now, should I move it here? Let me move it here. So once it's like cool enough to handle, just cut them into cubes. And then take that plate with the spinach that you have a well in the center. Place the tofu on the plate. And then now we're going to cover it with, I use wax wrap. You can use plastic wrap. Just cover it. And I'm going to leave it in the fridge while we make other, prepare for other ingredients.
Somebody asked why you cooked the tofu.
Why I cook the tofu, like I don't serve raw food. That's why you don't have to cook it. A lot of people, when you make tofu salad, you don't cook the tofu. It's just because when I create these recipes, I always have like, what I have in mind is what I will serve my mom when she was going through treatment. And then raw food is just a huge no for her. That's why all my food here are cooked, stir fry, or blanched. So this is another 8 minutes. I'm going to stir it. And then I cook for 25 minutes for the white rice because that's the consistency and the texture of the rice I like. Some people, like my sister, she doesn't really like to have the texture of rice. So she will cook for longer until all the rice is almost like melted in the broth. And to do that, you will need to like add more broth along the way, but it really is your personal preference how well cooked you want the rice to be.
So just to backstep one bit, Jamie, that wrap that you put on the that wax wrap that you put on the bowl, do you have a brand that you like? That was pretty cool. I got some messages about, ooh, what brand is that? Where do I find that?
Oh, it's like a Norwegian brand. I can like send you the link later. They have like I really like cute stuff and floral stuff. That's why I really like their stuff, because they're all like very florally. It's like very cute, and that made me happy. I will send you the link. Don't worry, you guys will know where to get it.
Perfect. We'll add it to our list of recommendations we'll send out with the recording.
Yes. So after we are done with the tofu and the spinach, now we're going to make the dressing. I'm going to make it on the board. So on my dressing ingredient, I usually don't mix everything all at once. I find it easier to mix the tahini and the peanut butter. Here I'm using the all natural peanut butter, so there's no sugar. It's just peanuts and oil. And the water first. Make sure they are like well combined. This way you can get a smoother dressing easier. So you're putting the tahini and the peanut butter. With the water. And mix them. It will look very weird in the beginning, but don't worry, trust me, they'll look and taste very great later.
Someone was curious what is generally involved when you develop recipes and how you go about creating them.
So I always, my comfort zone is Taiwanese or Chinese cuisine just because I grew up with them. But after I met my husband, I started cooking for high holidays and all the different Jewish holidays. And I find it very fascinating. All the flavor is just so different. All the spices are different. And so when I start creating my own, which my goal was to create something that, say during high holiday, when I eat it, I can still taste a bit of home. And then my husband's family and friends can still taste their traditional flavor. And it's just, I think it's a win-win situation. And it's also very fun to do that. So with that in mind, I always try to keep the tradition, but with some different twist or flavor or ingredient from my culture when I am creating, say, Jewish Asian recipe. So, and besides that, it's also in season ingredient because I buy my ingredient from farmers market a lot. So now I'm going to add in the rest of the ingredient. In the farmers market, everything is in season, and I usually get inspired by what I can get from the farmers market and then start from there what I can do with those ingredients and then develop recipe from there. Yeah.
And if you aren't following Jamie on her social media, I highly recommend it, especially like during Passover, some of the amazing kind of Jewish Asian fusion recipes were really looked delicious. So what did you just add in?
So I add in rice vinegar, sesame oil, soy sauce, and maple syrup. So I want some sweetness, but I also don't want to use like processed sugar. I use maple syrup here, and salt. I use 1/8 teaspoon of salt. It's just a little tiny bit of salt. That's it. And those are all the flavor that I said before that I always keep in my pantry because a lot of my recipe use those ingredients. Okay. So they're like now all mixed. And then we're just going to set them aside while we make our final dish. Okay. So for the final recipe, so the first two are all vegetarian. The final dish that I'm going to make is with salmon. So this is a steamed egg dish. It's very easy to make and it's very versatile as well. You can make it with so many different ingredients, really depends on what you feel like at that moment. What you're going to do is I have 2 room temperature eggs. Why room temperature? Because when the eggs are very cold, it's very hard to whisk them apart. It's great if you are trying to like separate the egg yolk and egg white, but when you're trying to whisk them, it's better to have them at room temperature. So this is what I'm going to do. First, you putting the egg. Then I am adding in a quarter teaspoon of salt. Salt also help to deconstruct the eggs. I learned it from a bakery that this is how they do to save time when they need to whisk a lot of eggs. They're adding a lot of salt. Not a lot, they're adding some of the salt. So in your, like, if you're a baker, in the baking recipe, you'll see like salt, and some people will mix the salt with dry ingredient, but some bakery, they actually mix the salt with the wet ingredient because that will save them some time in their day when they are whisking a lot of eggs. So after you have the egg and the salt, add in the mushroom kombu broth. Basically, I soak the mushroom in the kombu broth, and then that's how I got the umami from the mushroom with the kombu. And that's how I use in my steamed eggs. If you don't keep kosher, you can use like chicken broth, or you can use vegetable broth. The reason why I don't use vegetable broth in the kanji and the steamed eggs is because so now the kanji is ready. Let me see. The reason why I don't use vegetable broth is because I want the color of the kanji and the steamed eggs to stay as pure as possible. And then I personally don't like the color from the vegetable broth. That's why I didn't use it. I choose to make my own kombu broth. So here, let me show you what the kanji looks like right now. So kanji is something we eat a lot. Growing up, whenever I'm sick or when I need comfort food, this is the go-to. So here, they look like this.
Nice.
Yeah, so that is done. I'm going to keep it covered so you stay warm. Then,
as someone said, that looks delish.
it is very delicious. It's so comforting. Whenever me and my sister want comfort food, if you ask us separately, we will both give you the same answer, which is kanji. Well, but we will want different consistency. She'll want something that looks very melted all together. So now we're going to whisk it. This is there are 3 tips for my steamed eggs. This is the first one, which is you need to take your time to whisk the egg. The more you whisk the egg, the smoother the texture later after you steam the egg. So you need to try to like break down the egg as much as possible. I'll say continue to whisk for like 20-30 minutes. I use forks because I find forks fork is my favorite tool when it comes to whisking eggs.
Jamie, just going back to the kanji for a moment, could you make it without mushrooms?
Yes. So you can. So basically, kanji. There are so many different kind of kanji. We also actually make kanji just with rice and water, or rice with broth without anything else. We have a lot of side dishes that we will eat, kind of like oatmeal. So you can make plain kanji. You can add fish, ground beef, whatever ingredient you want to add in. They're all kanji. It's just here I use mushroom for the umami, and then the vegetables. So you don't have to. Mushroom is not a must. The must is the water or broth with the rice. That's it.
And what kind of container are you using right there? Is that just?
This is actually what you use to make cocktail. I just use it to whisk eggs.
I love that. I love that. And then you're supposed to whisk for 20 to 30 minutes. Was that?
Did I say minute? Second. Yeah, second.
Second. That makes more sense.
Sorry.
I think everybody was going 20 or 30 minutes.
Oh, no. I'm so sorry. Second. Yeah, so now they're They look very good.
Yeah, we can see.
So now what we're going to do is to, oh, I still need this. We're going to have 2 ramekin. You don't have to use this. I like how they look in the ramekin. You can use like any kind of bowls that can sustain heat. 2 ramekin, and then 2 salmon. Place them in the ramekin.
They're so cute.
Yeah, they're very nice. And then this is the shiitake mushroom that I already soaked, and they're now soft, and I slice them. You just place them around the salmon.
And I know we're just about at an hour, so I just want to remind everybody that we are recording this. We will be sending this out if you have to go. We will be sending out the follow-up and everything next week. How big were the salmon pieces? Someone has
So
asked.
that total is 50 grams, and then I separate them. So each is about 25. And then here is the soy sauce I forgot to add in to the egg. Yeah, so it's like 25, less than 30, just because I really like balanced portion. But if you're a huge salmon fan, you can go wild, have like 50 grams each bowl is fine. So the second tip for this steamed eggs is use a fine sieve. This will give you a smooth texture later. You pour the egg through the fine sieve. And then the third tip later is to use plastic wrap. And it's very important to check your packaging. That plastic wrap need to be microwave safe, because you want to make sure you are using a plastic wrap that's safe for heat. Yeah, so that's that. And we're gonna set this here. And then on the packaging, you can always see if they are microwave safe, they'll say it here. Why are we using plastic wrap? Is because when you're steaming the egg, there are a lot of water that will drip. And in order for you to have a glossy surface, you don't want the water to drop on the surface while it's being cooked. So this plastic wrap is going to prevent that to happen, which is why we are using it. You don't have to use it if you don't mind. If glossy top is not something you're looking for, then it's totally fine. It's not a must.
Jamie, do you ever use liquid aminos? Someone
No.
said that supposedly they can be a substitute for soy sauce and they're not as salty.
So again, when people tell me that soy sauce is salty, I think it's maybe because you are using either dark soy sauce or Japanese soy sauce. Because a lot of the soy sauce, like light soy sauce or steamed soy sauce, that's for steaming, they're not as savory. They're not salt. I will not describe them as like so salty. So yeah, I've never used that, but I'm going to Google it. It's very interesting. I always use soy sauce. It's really, if you go to like supermarket, Chinese supermarket, you will see a whole aisle of different soy sauce. They all taste different, and they all have different usage for different recipe and flavor. Yeah, so if you think the soy sauce you have in your kitchen is very salty, try get a lighter one, light soy sauce. They are like how how should I put it? Like beer. Beer has different color based on how they are made, and then the process are all different and result in different flavor and different taste and different color. Same thing for soy sauce. They have different color and then they have different flavor. So yeah. So what I just did is I put in some water in my wok, or if you don't have wok, you can use pan too. This is where I'm going to put my steam basket for steaming. While we are waiting for the water, is there more questions?
There aren't right this second, but I would say that we are going to be giving out a couple of bamboo steamers to people who fill out our evaluation at the end. So make sure to stay tuned for that.
I remember there's another question that got sent to me yesterday, which is if you are
was it
I
about
think the sodium?
Yeah. So
yes.
Wanted to know about enjoying Asian food without having too much sodium.
Yeah. So a lot of the food I grew up with are not salty at all. It's I will say when I was a kid, we will say, oh, Western food is very over seasoned, very salty. That's how I was brought up, the image. And I learned that's not true. Same thing for Asian food. I think a lot of the, say, Chinese restaurant here, they tailor to whatever flavor that sell the most. And then they like season very heavily for all of their dishes, but that's actually not the representative of the cuisine itself. So for example, all the food I make today are very iconic Chinese dishes, but none of them are super salty. And for the person who emailed me the question about don't want to use too much salt, in Asian cuisine, we use a lot of MSG. And I think MSG has a very bad reputation in Western world, but I actually Google on the US government nutrition website, MSG actually has 12% less sodium than table salt. And there are so many other benefits that if you go on the government's website, they will tell you like what other benefit you can have using MSG if too much salt or too much sodium is a concern. MSG, which we use a lot growing up, is a good alternative. And besides that, a lot of flavor, like I said, we use are not from salt. Salt actually is something that we add in the last for a little bit seasoning. Most of the flavor that come from like mushroom, like the seaweed or vegetables, or we use a lot of like bone for bone broth. So yeah, so most of the flavor are actually not from salt. Yeah. So now this is like start boiling. I'm going to put my steam basket on. And then carefully put your ramekin into the container. Close it. And then we are going to steam for 8 minutes. And when it's time, don't open the lid. Turn off the heat and then let it sit for another 3 minutes before you take it out. And then the egg will be fully cooked and we will be able to enjoy it. While we're waiting for the eggs, we're going to take the spinach tofu out. We're going to start plating. So this is the tofu. They're all like cold now. And what we're going to do is, this is the dressing we just made. Just stir a little bit so everything's mixed. And then just directly drizzle on the dressing. I know you cannot see right now. I will show you.
Is there a substitute to eggs?
No. For the steam eggs?
Yeah.
I don't know. I know for baking they're like substitute for eggs, but if you want to make a steamed eggs without eggs, I have never tried it, so I'm not really sure. But I can look into it, but at this moment I don't really know.
Thanks.
So I have some toasted white sesame seeds. I usually would toast the seeds or nuts before I use them. That actually brought up more like aroma from it. So I toast the white sesame seed, and then to garnish, you just like sprinkle them on freely after you pour on the dressing. And then that's it. Here.
Looks so good.
Yes. And then for the kanji, just take a serving bowl or whichever container you want to enjoy your kanji in. And then just serve the kanji in the bowl. The kanji, you can keep them in an airtight container after they are cool. And then when you want to reheat them, just add some more water or broth, and then just bring them back to a boil, and you can eat them. They will keep in the fridge for 2-3 days, and it's very easy to make them and then reheat them. So that's also another reason why I really like it. So once you like put them in the bowl, this is optional. I also like blanch some snap pea, and I finely chop them like that, just because I like some. Right now, this entire thing looks beige, and then when I serve food, I really like a pop of color to like, and also a different texture. You can sometimes I use cilantro, but like I said, I want everything to be cooked, so I use blanched snap pea here. So here, I think they look like cuter this way. You don't have to. This is optional. So this is how you serve the kanji. And then yeah, we have 4 more minutes for the steamed eggs. Is there more question?
Somebody said that they love all of these tips, and we have been taking them. My colleague has been taking all of the notes during the webinar, and so we will make sure to include those with you with the recording that we send out next week. And I guess let me just give a plug while we're waiting for the next webinar that we have coming up. It is on Tuesday, June 28th at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for an exclusive webinar, Eyebrow and Eyelash Application Tutorial with Beauty Bus. This program is for women in the Embrace community for those diagnosed with advanced breast and ovarian cancer. And you can also access all of our recordings and transcripts of past webinars on our website. And, you know, I just want to remind everybody that Sharsheret social workers and genetic counselor are here for you and your loved ones. And Sharsheret provides emotional support, mental health counseling, and other programs designed to help you navigate through the cancer experience. All are free, completely private, one-on-one. Our number is 866-474-2774. And you can also email us at clinicalstaff@sharsheret.org. So there were a couple of questions that came in while I was talking about that. Somebody wanted to know how you pick your wok, if you have any tips for that.
Oh, so my wok, I actually got them in Taiwan. I don't actually, so one thing I'll say, wok is very heavy. So the weight is very important, because eventually if it's too heavy for you, it's going to hurt your wrist. So pick a lighter or a way that you can comfortably use it is very important. And then there are like steel wok or cast iron wok out there. Cast iron is a lot more heavier. Mine is steel, and I personally love it. It's, for me, really the main thing is the weight. And then there are also like a lot of articles online. You can see that how to maintain and take care of your wok, because a wok literally you can use for the rest of your entire life. You don't have to buy a new wok. It's kind of like cast iron. You can pass it down to the next generation if you take good care of it. So yeah.
I see somebody asked, when you poured the dressing over the salad, did you just pour it on the spinach, or did you pour it just on the tofu, or over the whole thing?
Over the whole thing. But if you don't want it to be like cover the entire plate too much, you can just pour it on top of the tofu. And then when you're serving it, your guests, or if you're just eating by yourself, you can just mix it as you go. Or yeah, it really depends on you, because that dish is meant to be like enjoyed together, the dressing, the tofu, and the spinach. But in terms of presentation, you don't have to cover the entire thing with dressing, because then you lost the color and the texture of the tofu and the spinach. So I tend to drizzle on some on the spinach, but mainly focus on the tofu.
And what other kinds of food can you cook in the steamer? What do you
Oh, there are a lot of different kind of food you can cook in the steamer. You can steam rice. So that's how, say you make sushi rice, you make in the steamer. Or fish, we steam a lot of our fish are steamed in a steam basket. Or if you like dim sum, you'll see a lot of different dishes. Dim sum dishes are steamed in the steamer. And bao, which is like Asian kind of like bread, are cooked in the steamer. And then so I just turned out the heat. Now we are waiting for 3 minutes before you open the lid. So steamer is very versatile. You steam vegetable, but I know a lot of people don't like steaming vegetable, but we use steamer for steaming vegetable a lot. So yeah, from meat, to vegetable, to like grains, steamer is a very useful tool that basically everyone I know back home has them. And steamer also is something that you can use for the rest of your life. My grandma's steamer, she used her entire life. She got it as a gift when she got married. She used it even till like, when I grew up, she was still using the same steamer. So steamer, if you maintain it well, it's also a very long-lasting tool to keep in your kitchen.
Is there a special way that you wash it, or?
You don't wash it. So you steamer, you don't have to wash it. Same thing as wok, or if you have cast iron, you don't use soap. You use like water. And for steamer, you just like use a damp cloth and then wipe them. Basically, when we don't directly put food on the steamer, what my grandma did is back in the day, she used like old t-shirt or cloth, and then you use it as a liner. And for now, I don't use cloth. I use like either cheesecloth, or there are specific steam basket cloth, or there are steam basket paper, which is like parchment paper, but they have hole in the center. So if you cannot find them, you use parchment paper and you have some hole. You can poke some hole in the center so the steam can come up. So basically your food doesn't, oh my God, I just like opened it. Yeah, so you can just have a liner in the bottom before you put the food on. That's what we usually do. And in that way, you don't actually have to wash the steamer, you just wipe it. And then if you are in an area, I don't know if there are any like humid area in United States, because back home, it's very humid in Taiwan. So after we use it, we like put it away. Before we put it away, we make sure they're all dry, and then we put newspaper inside, so it will absorb the moisture, so it will not get moldy. But I think at least in New York, I don't have that problem. It's pretty dry here. So if where you are is very humid, put some newspaper in the middle when you store them away. That will help preventing it get moldy.
And
yes.
we are going to be giving away 2 bamboo steamers. And I think my colleague, if you wouldn't mind putting the link in the chat. Oh, she just did. Thank you. And so you can click on that and fill it out, and you can still hear what's going on as long as you don't close out of the Zoom.
So here is our steamed egg. It's very hot, so I have this handy tool that I also brought back from Taiwan. I don't know if you can, I can try to find it on Amazon or something, and then I can send you guys the link. But if you don't have it, use like a kitchen mitten or anything. Don't use your hand, it's very, very hot. And then just put them aside. And then here, they look like this. I'm going to garnish them. So remove the plastic wrap. So they have all the water here. Those water, if you don't have the plastic wrap, will go into the egg. And then let me show you what it looked like when I say glossy top. I don't know if you can see. It literally reflects the light. It's very glossy. Yeah, so on top, I blanched some snappy and I thinly slice them to garnish. You don't have to do it. Again, this is just for garnish, for a pop of color. You can just enjoy the steamed eggs as is. And basically, that's it.
Oh, that's amazing. If you don't have a steamer, that I'm gonna just ask a couple of questions about the steamer before we say goodbye. If you don't have a steamer, what can you use, and can you use the microwave? And if so,
so I don't use microwave much in general. I know there's a good microwave steamed eggs recipe on New York Times Cooking. That's amazing. It's very popular recently. You can Google that. And if you don't have a steamer, it's totally fine. If you have a rack, let's say you have a pot, a flat bottom pot, and then just have a rack in the bottom. Same thing, you have a boiling water, you have some boiling water in the bottom, and then you have a rack to like have to lift the ramekin or the bowl up. It's not soaking in the water, and then you cover it. That pot needs to have a lid, and then you cover it, same cooking time, and you're just the same method. You're still steaming it. You just are not using a steam basket, and that way you can also steam the egg, if that's helpful. In terms of microwave, I don't really know, but I know there's a very good recipe on New York Times.
We will try and find that to put in our tips and tricks that we send out. Well, thank you so much, Jamie. This was great. There's a lot of people in the class who are commenting on how much they loved it. You know, really check out Jamie on social media. Check out her website, which just launched, right? And yes, looks so beautiful. Also want to thank Sharon again for sharing her story with us. Please, if you didn't already, take a moment to fill out our evaluation survey. You know, you get your chance to win one of 2 bamboo steamers. And evaluations really do inform our future programming. So we really appreciate it if you just take a moment to fill that out. Sharsheret is here for you. Please check out our website for you know, our recordings and transcripts of all our past webinars. And thank you so much for being here. We hope that we'll see you at one of our webinars soon. Thank you.
Thank you.